Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. I have Wayne with me today, and we are going to be talking all about the evolution of the customer experience as it pertains to call centers or support groups within organizations. But before we dive into the questions that I have for you, Wayne, would you mind giving everybody an introduction?
Yeah, hi Emma, great to be with you, and of course, hello everybody. So I'm Wayne Butterfield. I work for ISG Automation. So my background is helping organizations use technology. And before I really got into using technology, I used to run call centers. So putting both of those things together to use technology in the call centers is kind of where I found my calling. So great to be able to talk about some of that today with you, Emma.
Saw what you did there with the call center and the calling. I like that. So to get us started, we mentioned this idea of the evolution of the customer experience that you've had that front row seat for. Can you share a little bit about what that journey has looked like?
Yeah, it's interesting. Certainly when I first started, it was very much the call center. I go back maybe 15 years and, customer engagement was either on the phone or via email. And as you mentioned, I had a real front row seat in how we evolved into more digital channels and first-hand experience of moving customers out of traditional channels into things like online chats, Facebook Messenger, and even going into other areas like online communities and social media, the rise of using Twitter to moan. So it was great to kind of be involved in that and really pioneer in some of the newer channels. And so it's been fantastic to kind of be involved in that. And then I guess today it's the automation of some of those new channels, so things like voice bots and chat bots. And so, even when you phone an organization, you don't really know whether you're going to speak to a person or a bot. And that is really interesting. And then I guess the next evolution of that is like, why do you even need to phone an organization? Why don't you just ask Alexa to find your balance, to do X, to do Y? And so this kind of ongoing evolution of what I class as, get help, because that's what it is now. Is how does a customer get help? And it could be anything from anyone, almost anywhere, which is amazing.
As we take a look at how this pertains to digital transformation and some of the, we can't leave out the technology component. You mentioned some of these things like chatbots and the rest. What are the tools that you see are critical for automating, whether it's a call center or support processes and helping customers get that help?
So I think there's kind of four things overall, right? And technology is a really important part of that. But you've obviously got, the customer and the type of customer. That's really evolved, right? We live in this culture of immediacy now. And so, the customer perception of what is good is constantly changing. And therefore, you need to evolve yourselves. You obviously have the agent themselves, and their role is probably getting even more complex because we have all these different channels, we have all these different technologies taking out some of the simple stuff. It leaves them with all the complexity. So then you've got to think about technology for the agent as well, and we'll come into that. And then I guess I mentioned before, channels, right? So not only do we have voice and email, but we now have all these text-based channels. Some of them are real-time, some of them are asynchronous. Some of them live in customers' homes, such as the kind of the voice assistants, etc. So if you think about these three things, the changing customer and the different types of customer, the agent and the role that they're having to play, and then the channels that they're having to interact with customers in. The technology that underpins all that is really important. And I think there's a couple of different technologies that are really key. One of them I would say is the removal of contacts coming in. So taking away some of the simple stuff. So voice bots was certainly one that we mentioned. And we're certainly seeing a large growth in the use of those type of technologies, especially because of COVID, right? But then there's also this other area of technology like automating the things that agents are doing. And so if you're an agent and you're dealing with all the complex things that are still left over because the automations, your chatbots, your voice bots haven't been able to deal with it, then having a virtual assistant, having a robot on your desktop to be able to deal with the transactional stuff, I think is really going to be important. And what that does is it takes away the agent needing to do this and allows them to do this. So if the agent's listening to the customer, they're obviously going to be able to deal with them a lot better versus half listening, half doing. And so I think that's really important. So I think those two things, those two types of technologies, are really important for the future of the contact center, at least.
So you brought up a couple of good points there that kind of lead me into this next conversation. And looking at one, how do you help your agents be more empathetic and have the attention span to be able to really listen to the customer? But also, that idea of like, we see these chatbots or automated phone systems more and more frequently now. And you and I talked about, it was a couple weeks ago, my husband was literally yelling at the bot on the other end of the phone because he just wanted to talk to a person. And I think every single one of us has had that experience before. So what advice do you have for organizations to help them find that right balance of automating the process so that you can meet expectations, but still having people involved in the process enough that you're not frustrating your customers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a great point, right? As we've all had those situations where we've used technology and it hasn't delivered what we want. And most of the time when we're speaking with the brand, it's not for pleasure, right? It's not because we really love speaking with the brand as much as they would say, "Hey, our NPS is so high, customers love us." No, we might love your product, but we don't like necessarily interacting with you. And so I think that's obviously important to remember. Any automation needs to help the customer get their job done, and their job is, completing a transaction, getting a query resolved, understanding a product feature, getting a problem fixed, making a return. So anything we do where we automate it, we have to make sure that we're still trying to help the customer get the job done. If all we're trying to do as an organization is save cost, reduce our cost, you're onto a hiding, right? You have to think about the customer and what they're trying to do and make sure that any automation is geared around that. Things like conversational design are so important. They're undervalued. Everyone thinks about chatbots and voice bots as a technology. I would say that the role of crafting your conversation and thinking about the various different permutations that the customer may go down is so important. I would say even more important the technology you choose, because if you craft the right experiences, whether it's with a person, whether it's with the technology, you're going to lead to a lot higher success. And of course, we also need to make sure that people are the fallback. Even some of the best people at the moment who are designing conversations and designing conversational journeys still only get 50, 60, 70% success rate through end to end. So there's 30, 40, or 50% of customers still falling out speaking with an agent. If you're not building an agent into your journeys, it's likely that 30, 40, or 50% of your customers are like your husband was. But I just blah, blah, really frustration. And that's not going to be great for NPS at the very least. And it's going to lead to your customers being extremely frustrated, and in the long run, that's going to harm your business, not save you operational costs.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Wayne, and sharing this wisdom with everybody. We were just talking about, you wrote an article on this, so I'm going to link that in the comments as well for anyone that wants to learn a little bit more. But I would also encourage anybody that's interested in connecting with Wayne to head on over to his LinkedIn and connect with him there. I can promise he's a super patient, very nice guy. So thank you everybody for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
Great. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, everyone.